Well, good morning. We're in the middle of the Memorial Day weekend, which is traditionally the first long weekend as summer approaches. But Memorial Day is more than a three-day weekend. It's a day set aside to honor all those who have given their lives to defend our country. This morning we'll talk more about that. We'll also get an update on what's happening in Lansing as we visit with Upper Michigan's newest state representative. It starts right now.
From TV6, this is The Ryan Report. Here's your host, Don Ryan.
Well, Representative Greg Markkanen was elected to serve in the State House of Representatives last November. Representative Markkanen was a school teacher and was active in local government, but had not previously served at the state level. Today he represents Michigan's 110th State House District, which includes most of western Upper Michigan, including Keweenaw, Houghton, Ontonagon, Gogebic, Baraga, and Iron counties, plus Ishpeming and Powell townships in Marquette County. Representative Markkanen, welcome to the Ryan Report.
It's good to be here.
Good to
Thank
have
you.
you with us. It is Memorial Day weekend. You know, you're a legislator. I know you're also a veteran.
Yeah.
What thoughts do you have about Memorial Day?
Well, it's a very emotional weekend for veterans. Looking back at the armed services of the United States and all the millions of men and women who served and have paid the ultimate price for this country.
We like these three-day weekends, but does that sometimes take away from maybe the recognition that the day should receive in itself?
It possibly does, but there, if you go up into the Keweenaw and across the United States, especially in the Upper Peninsula, there's a lot of events going on Memorial Day to honor our fallen veterans, both men and women, and to give them the honor and the remembrance that they deserve.
The World War II was considered the most patriotic period in U.S. history, probably. And veterans from that era certainly were treated well at the time. There have been questions about how we've maybe treated veterans since then. Are we doing enough for our veterans?
I think we are. We can always do better. I had a real golden opportunity recently to give a tribute to a veteran in Gogebic County who had just turned 100, who served in the same unit in World War II that I served in the 82nd Airborne Division. And he was a glider pilot in World War II and had 5 battle stars. And I gave him a tribute from the governor and Senator McBroom and I for his 100th birthday. And it was just a very emotional moment to give him this tribute.
And of course, one of the great things up here are these honor flights where the vets get to go to Washington.
And it's wonderful. People support that. Financially, they have fundraisers and people donate. And I've known a few veterans that have gone on those flights. And it's just an emotional moment to go to Washington, D.C.
Well, let's talk about your new assignment. What's it like being a new legislator in Lansing? How's it going?
Well, I told many people it's like a full day of teaching with no prep hour. There's a lot of people who want a portion of your day. Our day is staffed out. We have session Tuesday through Thursday. So it's in the morning we take constituents' calls. I have 2 people working in my office. It's just, you get into the office early. I try to, and before you know it, it's 6:30, 7 o'clock at night.
And of course, being a new legislator might be different, but you actually have quite a few other new ones with you, don't you?
We do. We have a large freshman class, and I like to say that we have more former teachers in this freshman class than we do attorneys.
Anything surprised you so far? Is it kind of what you expected? Or?
It is kind of what I expected. There's a lot of, I guess, the special interest groups, the stakeholders, and all the different issues that come to Lansing or come through Lansing. There's a lot of good people, and there's a lot of people that I feel just aren't very sincere. And they come through your office and they present their issues and where they stand on a topic, and you have to sort it out.
Right. Did you feel welcomed by your colleagues in Lansing?
Oh, very much so. We have, our caucus has a lot of support, has offered a lot of support the past couple of months. Anytime I have a question, I don't hesitate to have my staff pick up a phone or I call or show up in person and talk to the leadership and and get answers.
And for that matter, for you, the fact that your caucus is headed by the Speaker of the House, who was also represents at least part of the UP, that must be an advantage too.
Right, Speaker Chatfield represents Mackinac and Chippewa County, and then 2 counties below the bridge. So having the Speaker of the House representing part of the UP is a real honor.
That brings to mind too that you mentioned the caucus. I think most legislators go to Lansing feeling pretty independent, but when they get there, both Democrats and Republicans realize they are part of a caucus, and they do have to somewhat work together. How has that worked out for you?
Well, a good example recently was Representative Cambenzi's mining bill. That this was a bill that she put together, a great bill, and Representative LaFay and I decided, mining is a part of both of our districts, all 3 of our districts. So we chose to co-sponsor that bill and support that bill through its progress through the House. So, we're both independent caucuses, but when it comes to a bill that's going to benefit the UP, we're going to stand together. So
we are still seeing that collegiality among UP legislators.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's very important. That's been established for some time.
It is.
What committee assignments have you taken on now?
Well, this being Memorial Day weekend, I do serve on the Veterans and Homeland Security Committee with Representative LaFay, so the Upper Peninsula has very good representation on that committee. I'm the majority vice chair of the Insurance Committee. I serve on Energy and on the Education Committee, which I'm honored
Okay,
to
we'll
do.
talk about some of those things in just a couple of minutes. We'll be back with more on today's show after we take a 2-minute break. Again, we're talking this morning with State Representative Greg Markkanen. Before we talk about some of the issues, one of the challenges for you has to be that you must have the longest drive of any legislator in the State House.
I do. I have the longest drive. I think this winter, we all know what type of winter we had. I think my longest drive was 10.5 hours.
And you have to adjust now to spending 3 or 4 nights a week in Lansing during session, too.
I do.
Is that working out?
It's working out just fine. We're trying to get back on the weekend, have office hours around the district and circulate and attend events and listen to people.
Are there any particular issues that are coming out of your committee assignments that you're learning more about?
The way this past winter went, the snow days were a big issue. We talked about that in Education Committee, and the governor obviously closed the state down for 3 days. There were some school districts downstate that had upwards of 25 snow days. Of course, they have a different issue with snow and black ice down there.
Right.
I don't think any of our UP districts went that high, but forgiveness of snow days is a big issue in the Education Committee because we don't want students to lose out on their educational time, but we don't want to risk their lives on the highway in the school buses either.
Right. What issues are you hearing about from your constituents? What seems to be mainly on their mind?
Well, the number one issue when I was campaigning, and number one issue as I circulate around the district is auto insurance.
Okay.
Auto insurance reform, and as you know, just last week we spent almost 14 hours on the floor of the House, and we passed a bill that has a fee schedule for medical services, and it gives people options, different choices and coverage that they might want.
Well, those bills passed both the House and Senate. The governor said she would veto them. The leadership of the Republicans in both the House and Senate have decided to hold off for a bit, I guess. What seems to be the governor's main concern, do you know?
Well, I think the governor's main concern is that she made a lot of campaign promises, and a lot of those campaign promises were to the healthcare industry. I think she wants people to be covered. We've had this no-fault catastrophic coverage now for going on 40 years, I believe, and I think it's hard for the governor to step away from it and be the governor to sign off on this reform. But if you look at the TV poll or the TV6 poll on Facebook and other polls across the state, people want reform. They want a lower rate. I know in Ironwood and down in southern Michigan along the border, people are leaving the state or crossing over to other states to purchase services that they can't afford in Michigan, and that's wrong.
What do you think is going to happen? Do you think that the parties will be able to come to some agreement?
Well, I believe that the leadership right now has been negotiating throughout the weekend, and hopefully they can reach an agreement with the governor without compromising the reform bill package that we put together. The leadership can reach an agreement and bring it to the caucus this coming week here, and we can discuss it both in the House and Senate.
One of the concerns is, if you give people options of not buying the coverage, they won't.
Right.
And it'll kind of put an end to this program. Is that a good thing or not?
Well, I think, with senior citizens are covered by medical insurance already. They could opt out of this. There'll be 4 options. There'll be a catastrophic option where people will be covered by medical coverage, and then there'll be 3 lower options. So people, the savings here, we're talking upwards of over $1,000 or more on a policy. So, this is significant savings for people across the UP and Michigan.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens, and
It will
certainly
be.
it's an issue that's of concern to many people. One of the governor's other main campaign issues was fixing the roads, and she proposed a 45% increase in the price of a tax on gas, and that's pretty much been dead on arrival with Republicans, but also many Democrats as well, right?
Well, it puts Democrats on the spot too in their caucus. I guess, probably right along with auto insurance would be that 45% gas tax and the small business tax. It would just slow our economy down. We rely a lot on tourism up here in the UP and across Michigan, and raising our taxes or gas taxes I think would keep a lot of people away from Michigan during the summer. It also put a strain on our businesses, our logging industry, our mining industry, and a lot of other small businesses that depend on transportation. So, we have a road funding plan in place. We'd like to keep that in place and look at some other way to fund roads, perhaps maybe 100% of the gas tax going to roads and infrastructure like they have in other states.
As I understand now, 6 cents of the sales tax on the tax goes to sales tax.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll talk about some other issues in just a couple of minutes. Back
right.
with more on today's Ryan Report after we take one more break. Once again this morning we're talking with State Representative Greg Markkanen, who represents the 110th District, which includes very much of western Upper Michigan. You were a school teacher, so there's a lot we could talk about as far as education goes.
Yes, sir.
One of the governor's plans put forth in the State of the State message, or in the budget message, was a proposal that would provide 2 years of community college for any qualifying students, and some support for tuition to a 4-year college. What's happening with that proposal?
Well, both the House and Senate and the governor are working out their budgets, and some of the budgets haven't been finalized yet, but they're going to be soon, hopefully. But we haven't seen a source of funding that would actually pay for that 2 years of free community college. We benefit greatly up here in the Upper Peninsula from having Go Give It Community College and Bay College. And in these community colleges, they're offering a lot of continuing CTE training, providing trained people for the workforce. But as far as the governor's plan, I haven't seen a solution on what's going to fund this 2 years of free tuition.
Okay. And these are all going to become budget issues eventually, right?
Absolutely. Well,
and under the previous administrations where we had a Republican governor and both branches of the legislature controlled by Republicans, they were able to work it out. Now it's going to be interesting to see what happens this time.
well, there's a lot of meetings, all the appropriations meetings, all the different committees are meeting, the committees are meeting. There's a lot of discussion, a lot of negotiation behind the scenes. that I'm not party to, but I trust my caucus and I trust my leadership, and I believe the Democrats, at least the upper peninsula Democrats, Representative Cambenzi, want the best for the UP.
There was a report fairly recently by Michigan State which said that no state has reduced spending for education in the past 20 years like Michigan.
Yeah.
Are we doing enough to support education in
Well,
this state?
I would like to see more CTE. Right now, currently, I know Houghton County has a millage for CTE. It allows one course for juniors and seniors. I would like to see an actual CTE curriculum, 9th through 12th grade, and at the high school level, where students can either keep the Michigan merit curriculum or choose to go on a vocational track and pick a job skill that they'd like to explore and start doing job shadowing as early as 9th grade, work very strongly with the local business community. And so by the time that they're seniors in high school, they could be ready to step into an internship or an apprenticeship program in one of the many unions or one of the other job fields across Michigan.
We for a period of time, we're heading pretty much on a track of everyone has to go to 4 years of college. And several years ago, with CTE and some other developments, we've at least turned the corner somewhat on that. It seems we've made a fair amount of progress.
I think we have to keep making progress. Not college isn't for everybody. CTE training, we need welders, we need mechanics, we need plumbers, electricians, we need IT people, and these are good paying jobs. This is going to allow businesses to come to Michigan and hire a trained workforce. We have one of our greatest assets up here in the Upper Peninsula are our youth, and a lot of these youth want to stay in the UP and get a job, get a career started, start a family, and settle down. And it's very difficult to do that now without having bringing in these jobs and bringing in these companies that need these workers.
There are several possibilities for mining developments in the UP. Speaking of jobs, Highland Copper in the Copper Country, the Back 40 project in Menominee County, and the possibility the Empire Mine could reopen.
Yeah.
Are these, do you support these projects?
I do support these projects. I've been monitoring the price of copper. I've been in contact with Highland Copper, which is in the 110th district. I've also talked with Representative LaFay about the Back 40 project and Representative Cambenzi with CCI. We've had meetings with CCI personnel in her office. So I do support these jobs. Highland Copper at the peak of production could bring 500 to 600 jobs to Gogebic and Ontonagon County. We just need the price of copper to go up so they can start, they can get their investors going and start digging.
Just about out of time. Any final thoughts on how things are going in your
Well,
new assignment?
it's a very humbling experience to serve the people of the Western UP, and I don't take any day for granted. I turn the corner and I drive to the Capitol, and I pinch myself that I have this honor and privilege to serve the people of the Western UP.
Okay, thanks for coming in and talking about it this morning.
Thank you.
We'll have some other thoughts for you in just a couple of minutes. Well, the list is out. Thanks to the Social Security Administration, we now know the most popular baby names for the past year. Are there surprises? Well, that depends on your point of view. I'm actually surprised to see many of the names I see, even though they've been there for a few years, but that's me. The top 5 girls' names are unchanged in their ranking. They are Emma, Olivia, Ava, Isabella, and Sophia. The top 10 is basically the same, except that Harper returned to the list, kicking Abigail out of that group. Sorry, Abby. For boys, the top 5 names are Liam, Noah, William, James, and Oliver. Most of them are in the same position as last year, except Oliver cracked the top 5 for the first time this year, moving from 9th to 5th and pushing Logan out of the top 5 and all the way down to 10th. Looking at the top 10 for boys, Jacob fell out of that select group while Lucas moved in. Sorry, Jake. You know, what's interesting, if you take a historical look at any name, many have had their day of popularity, even though they have come and gone and sometimes returned again. In 1900, Emma was the 13th most popular name for all baby girls, but by 1976, it had slid all the way to 463rd in popularity. It remained down in that category for a couple of decades in the 70s and 80s, but fought its way back to the top in 2008 and has been either 1, 2, or 3 for the past 16 years and was the #1 girl's name for the past 5 years. Since many Americans are often intrigued by the royal family, I did a quick check on the name Archie, the name of Prince Harry and his wife Meghan's new baby. I could not find a lot of data. Apparently it hasn't spent much time in the top 1,000 names. In 2018, it ranked 922nd among all boys' names. It will be interesting to see what happens in the future. But let's get down to the important names. What's the story on Don or Donald? Well, Donald peaked in popularity in 1934 when it ranked at number 6. It was a top 20 name from 1915 through 1960, and on the list of the most popular names in the last century, it ranked number 15. What about today? Not so good. Last year, it slid all the way to 526 in popularity. That's its worst showing ever, by far. Such a disappointment. Wonder what the problem is. I guess all we Dons can do is bask in the glory of our former days. I think I told you once before, it bears repeating though, according to the name meaning dictionary, Donald means world ruler, world mighty, and great chief. My parents must have had higher aspirations for me than I realized. I'll be back in a minute. It's about time for us to wrap it up for another week. Remember, for the latest news anytime, check out UpperMichiganSource.com. You can also find a rebroadcast of this show at that same address. Thanks to Representative Markkanen for being here this morning to talk about his first few months on the job and some of the hot topics in Lansing. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Memorial Day weekend and that you will take time tomorrow to remember those who gave their lives to keep America free. And before we go, a reminder that next Sunday morning we'll have a special report on the opening day at the new hospital in Marquette. Hope you'll join us then.